Family, of course, that's your first influence. My mother was a single parent first, so I didn't have your first community is your family. And so my first family was broken because my mother was a single parent. She was a performer, so she was away all the time. So I was raised by somebody else. And that person is really the strongest influence on my life. And she was taking care of me and my then grandmother, who had stroke, so she didn't speak. So I don't really know my first part of my family. But my mother married this incredible person. And we started our lives in Manhattan, but my stepfather lived in Newark, New Jersey, and he had a son and a daughter. So now when my mother married my stepfather, we moved from New York City, the big city, to little Newark, New Jersey. That's a huge change in culture. And from a broken to really no family to now I have a sister, brother, aunts, uncles, cousins. I have a family, I have a community. So what I'm going to explain to you, are you an only child?
No.
Okay, well, then you relate to what I'm saying. All of a sudden now, I was an only child with only like my grandmother who didn't speak, who was an invalid, the lady who raised me, who was kind of like a grandmother. So no siblings. I didn't really know how to communicate. Of course, now I'm a professional communicator. See, I'm trying to say the stark cultural differences that were part of my first surroundings. History repeating.
Welcome back to History Repeating and our first episode with Tony Award winner Melba Moore, who has had a Broadway career most could only dream of. As you heard, Melba's life changed when her mother remarried and she joined a big family. It wasn't until after this that she realized that she could really sing.
Stepfather was a piano player and he and my mother worked together. So now all of a sudden, I was already 10 years old before I found out that I had a voice. So when you are the voice, usually by the time, you're a toddler around 3 or 4 years old, if you have a voice, somebody's going to tell you, oh, look, she can sing. Well, that didn't happen for me until like 10 years later. So I've been late doing everything all my life. But that's how my first influences started. And of course, my father was a great piano player. Well, he was great to me. But he loved piano players and he made us all take piano lessons. So I learned about piano players like Art Tatum and Oscar Peterson and people who are just incredible jazz innovators because they came along in the 40s and 50s. I came along in the 50s and 60s. So all the jazz greats and the blues greats of that time, and of course we're Black, so we experienced segregation, even in the North, and racism. So we were in our own little cult in a way. But Mother and Daddy, they weren't blues artists, they were like pop artists, because my stepfather, for some reason, his mother, which would be my grandmother then, they don't know anything about the South. They only know like New Jersey. Maybe they don't know their history, I don't know. But so there's like it's not the typical Black African-American story where you start in the church, maybe if you're lucky and you get that cultural. I was deprived of that. I didn't have that. Well, I had it, but my mother made me Catholic. So there's a whole dichotomy of cultures there. We used to sneak around to the Baptist church and hear the good, hollering and hooping and holy dancing in the Baptist churches in Newark, New Jersey. And then once I had music in the center of my family, and my mother and father rehearsed their band in our house, music got in my heart, and I was learning how to play the piano. And I determined by the time it was time to go to high school that I didn't want to go to a regular high school. I wanted to go to a music and art high school.
It's hard to believe Melba didn't realize she had such a special voice until she was 10. Melba, unlike a lot of her contemporaries, didn't grow up in the Baptist church. She grew up as a part of the Catholic Church. And even though she came back to Catholicism, from her early teens on, Melba wanted to discover herself and explored all types of religions.
I'm not really aware of that so much, only because now there's so many music influences in my head and in my heart. I'm not sure, but I know spiritually it did. And because like most people, by the time you get to puberty, you stray away from everything. Everything your parents tell you, you throw that away, right? You start over. Well, I did that with my religion too. And I said, well, I don't want anybody to tell me anything. You know, it's like you've been in school and at home, somebody's telling you something or teaching you something. You don't know what you think. So you want to know, and that's what puberty is for. You're supposed to find yourself. And by the time it was time for me to get out of college, really, because everything kind of started late. And I was out of my house and I didn't have to teach school anymore. I taught school for quite a while, public school music. I just wanted to find my own self. So I started all over again. I studied the Eastern religions. I just read everything, the Aquarian Gospel of Jesus Christ, everything. But I was fascinated. I wanted to know, why was the sky blue? I'll put it that way. What is this that people are talking about? Everybody has something to say about it. Who's right? Who knows what they're talking about? Is it even important? I don't know. And because my first Broadway show was Hair. Do you know anything about that show?
I haven't seen it, but I know quite a bit about it. I know the soundtrack.
Do you know what the basic philosophy is?
Um, I'm not quite sure, no,
Well, it's free
about
love,
it.
it's equality, it's,
Yeah,
you know, it's, you can be naked if you want to. uh, well, it's like everybody love everybody, peace. It's the beginning of the peace movement. So that was my first Broadway show. So it was in Hair that I first wore an afro because racism was so strong in our society, even in the North. As a school teacher, I was not allowed to wear my hair natural. I had to straighten it. So some of the things that I learned about just finding out who myself was really after I got on Broadway.
It seemed perfect that Melba would join the cast of Hair, and eventually she went on from being the supporting role to the lead role, becoming the first Black actress to replace a white actress in a lead role on Broadway.
After I was in the show for about a year or so, they had a lot of different people playing the lead role, and they weren't happy with them. So one of the Black girls, she said, why don't you let Melba try out for it? I don't know why she was speaking up for me, but she was a big mouth Black young lady. So she said, let Melba try it. So they said, well, we'll let her, why don't we rehearse her and let her try it for the Wednesday matinees, and if she works okay, we'll let her do the role. Well, the end of it is that I wound up replacing Diane Keaton, who had done the lead role. A lot of people did the lead role, but she's the only one that anybody knows. So I let everybody know that I replaced Diane Keaton. And it made the front page of the New York Times. It was very important. Plus the fact that it was a Black girl playing the female lead in a romantic role on Broadway. So all of those kind of really broke the rules of everything. So that's the way that I kind of started to see who I was and who I was going to be. And then eventually, what did I really believe, or what was I going to seek spiritually and religiously? And I wound up back at Catholicism, but not until I went through a whole series of real hard searching. And I'm Catholic now, but I worship anywhere I want to. You know, nobody tells me where to go, what to do, but I only do what I hope God wants me to do. So I'm not arrogant, I hope, but I'm adamant because I got the microphone, I got the camera now. So somebody could be influenced by me, then I need to know what I'm thinking, know what I'm doing, and I need to want to set a good example. I'm not trying to hide from being an example. You can't avoid being wrong, but can really try hard to be right, and not just for your own sake. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Melba knew how important hair was, but she discovered how much it meant to so many different people.
I knew how important it was, but I kind of thought it was important to me, and I thought it was important to me as a Black person. I knew that it was important to the white society because they had the power, and I knew that they were impressed with it. I'm going to say yes, but it would not mean the same thing to me as it would to a white person. It wouldn't mean the same thing to a person who was a critic on the New York Times, you know, as it would in another part of society. Depends on who you were and where you were. But to everybody, of course, it was extremely important. But as far as like really how important it was and how, I don't know when it affected, I don't think I had a real thorough idea. I don't think so.
5. Hair has gone on to become one of the biggest musicals in history, and Melba was so glad to be a part of it. But it was her next role in Purlie that led to her becoming a Broadway star.